for young people to get together like that, and that was such a wonderful part of her life growing up. So I'm so thankful that Mrs. Poole and all of you could be here tonight. So Mrs. Vasilati will tell us much more about the candy store's long history. But before turning things over to her, I want to make one request, that you will please get in touch with us if you have any items you think we might be interested in including in our upcoming exhibit that we're working on the heyday of boardwalk culture and its amusement. This exhibit will consider amusements broadly. So if you have things related to the games, the rides, dining, dancing, and any other things that people did on the boardwalk back in the day up to the present, please get in touch with us. And so now, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Donna Vasilati. For those of you who don't know me, this is probably just this side of the list. The rest of them I went to school with or I related to. I was married to a Snyder for 22 years and had children by him. And the front row are all the descendants that live in town. How many people here at one time or another went to Snyders? Wow. That's a lot. Every town has this is a 1950s, right? Yeah. Every town has some place where the kids like to hang out after school, and this was it. Snyders ice cream, candy, newspapers was for Hobbes, was where the kids go out around, but it wasn't the first one. It was called Snyders from 1936 to the present. But what you might not know is that it was owned by two different Snyders who were not related. And it was in two different buildings. But I'm going to go way back to the turn of the century, to one of Rehoboth's first ice cream stores that eventually the spot became Snyders. In 1897, Mr. and Mrs. Harry Elliott bought number 18 Rehoboth Avenue, which is that farthest building on the right there. They bought number 18 Rehoboth Avenue, and they built a roomy two-story cottage, opened it as a rooming house, a photography studio, and they leased part of the first floor as a store. In June of 1899, Herbert Blackiston of Dover opened up Blackiston's clam, oyster, and ice cream hokey pokey. And that's a closer picture. You can see the sign over here at the time where the photography place is.
Tell me where. You're gonna have to tell me when to start.
On the first floor of Elliott's. Now you're all wondering, what is a hokey pokey? Well, the encyclopedia, Wikipedia says, hokey pokey is a slang term for ice cream coined in the late 19th and early 20th century in several areas, including New York, Boston, and parts of Great Britain. Ice cream vendors on the streets would call their wares with little ditties like hokey pokey, penny a lump. That's the stuff to make you jump. An ice cream block was sandwiched between two pieces of paper and termed a hokey pokey. Thus, the purveyor of the ice cream was known as the Hokey Pokey Man, and there he is. Oysters and clams were plentiful in Rehoboth Bay and the Delaware River, and were very popular with the tourists. So I guess that's why they had ice cream and clams and oysters. Blackiston's was in the Elliott building until
Where do you want?
Yeah, here we go. There's still a still. Breakfast was in the LA building until 1919 when it was replaced by another ice cream lunchroom called Boyd's. John Boyd was not there very long when a devastating fire broke out on July 9th, 1919.
Right.
A fire that
Let me get there.
a fire that may have started in Willard Truett's merry-go-round, and I've had several people say, "Well, we heard that someone threw a lighted cigarette within the merry-go-round fell." So, fire. It was discovered early Tuesday morning. It destroyed Boyd's Ice Cream Parlor, LA's Rooming House, the Pennsylvania Railroad Excursion House.
I'm getting there. I don't know why it's not moving, but just wait a minute.
There's the Excursion House. And the Excursion House was the train came right down the middle of Rehoboth Avenue.
Where did you want that?
And you go off the train. We'll go back to the Excursion House. Okay.
I don't know where we are. Told you should have done it yourself. There you go.
Okay. When you got off the train, it was a place where you could go in there, have a seat, rest. And if you brought lunch with you, you could sit in there and have lunch. But that burned down and it was not rebuilt. And the only reason that go back to the yeah.
Look up there.
Okay.
You can see it better.
The only reason it didn't burn up, the house next to it was Truett's. And it was where the post office was. And the only reason that it didn't burn up in the fire was because the firemen took the porch off the side there. The same week as the fire, John Boyd passed papers buying number 18 Rehoboth Avenue. He built a one-story building with a front porch and reopened Boyd's new ice cream and soda fountain. And there you see Boyd's right there. And this is 1928, I think this first part is. It was described as a roomy building with large windows in front. A long soda fountain. One woman said it smelled like vanilla beans. She said it smelled cold. It had stools and tables and chairs. It had large travel posters of steamships on the wall, supplied by the local travel agent, Mr. Stokes. Boyd sold Breyer's ice cream. It was a popular brand at the time. And it was already 53, a brand that was 53 years old. So newspapers, they were 3 cents a paper. He saved up his paper coins in large cans, and when he had enough, he would buy a new Buick. It was popular with kids, teens, and adults alike. You could get a quick lunch, ice cream sundae, sodas, or milkshake, and meet up with your pals. John himself was known as a good-natured man and was very well-liked. He was not above being the butt of a joke. The story goes that 5-year-old Jay Wingate, who lived across the street from Boyd's.
Wait a minute, let me find it. Here we go. There we go.
And this house was there till.
That's the Wingate's house, right?
Yeah, this is the Wingate house. And one day in summer, it was being painted white with green paint. And 5-year-old Jay Wingate decided he wanted to paint too. So he asked the painters, he said, "Can I have a bucket of paint and brushes?" And they wanted it. No. They went to lunch and he helped himself. And then he took his paint and his green brush and he went next door to Annie Hazard, who was real estate agent. Oh, he had just had her screen porches, new the screen, he painted the screens again green. Went around the corner to his buddy who lived in the Lingo Apartments on First Street and said, "Come on," he says, "you want to help me paint?" Right then, John Boyd's dog walked by. Now this is what they did to him. They painted him green from his paws to his tail. Then they went up Baltimore Avenue to the fire hall. Painted front of the fire hall. Painted the house next to the fire hall. Painted the house, the next house to that one. Instead of painting the house, they went into the lady's outhouse and painted her toilet seat green, which she promptly came out and sat on and was very angry. The little DJ did not get in trouble because his dad was the mayor of the town. It was told that you always got your money's worth at Boyd's because there was a man named Mr. Tooley who could pack 2 gallons of ice cream in a 1-quart container. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering what the heck this has to do with Snyders. I don't know if this dog being painted green had anything to do with it, but in 1936, Mr. Boyd decided to retire and sold his business to Forrest Snyder. Now, Forrest Snyder was the first Snyder that was the owner of Snyders. Forrest Snyder was a civil engineer from Ohio. He and his wife Jenny came to Delaware in the 20s, where Forrest was busy building bridges. I think he even built some up near Milford. He opened up Snyders ice cream and newsstand. It was as popular as Boyd's, perhaps even more. It quickly became the local teen hangout. Go back a second.
Go back.
Yeah.
That goes back to the
right there. I just wanted to show you that during Boyd's time, this is what the end where he was Avenue looked like at the time that Boyd had it.
Here's the bus.
This is after 27.
Yeah. And that's Boyd's again.
Oops. Okay. Get up here. This was the agency for the Red Star Line. And you can see this is where the buses came and parked. They parked back of the circle behind the comfort station. Now the buses gas up at Doc Burton's gas station, which is also like a Hills Avenue. Early one morning, Doc Burton had not had his coffee, and the bus pulled in to get some diesel fuel. He ran out there, and he was pumping the gas, and all of a sudden he realizes he's pumping regular gas into the diesel bus. And his face, oh no. So he quickly switched over to diesel and just hoped for the best. So later on, he went up to Snyders and he goes inside and says, Forrest, he goes in to get his coffee. And first he says to Forrest, he says, so Forrest, he says, what's happening on the road? What's happening this morning? Forrest said, you know, it's the darndest thing. He says, the bus went to pull out. He says, and it went around the circle. He said, and it backfired so bad it scared everybody on Rehoboth Avenue and Flynn shot 20 feet out the tailpipe. Well, I don't know if any of you remember Judge Henry Horsey. When he was young, he and his friends were having a water pistol fight on the boardwalk. And he ran out of water and he thought, where am I going to get some water? He says, I know. I'm going to go to Snyders. He walked in and his sister Lloyd was sitting there with her friends and she was teenage and it's like, and she's going, oh no. And he sits down at the table right next to her and orders a glass of water. She looks at him and goes, he pulls the pistol out, water pistol out. Don't you dare.
fills the water pistol up, gets up and left. It's just that she was so embarrassed, she went home and told her mother. Forrest was a great sports fan. He loved football, soccer, basketball, most of all, baseball. Rumor has it that after every football or basketball game, cooks were on the house, the Snyders, and if the team won, the planners all received free milkshakes. Snyders sold newspapers like the Wilmington Morning News, News Journal, it was an evening journal. Yeah. He paid young boys to deliver on bicycles, and he also had a couple people that delivered in cars and automobiles. Well, Mr. Herman, that grew up in Rehoboth, remembers one winter when the race was first solid. Silver Lake and Lake July, but a lot of people stayed on Silver Lake back then. We had colder winters. It was bitter. It was a bitter night. It was a bitter day. And the guys had to deliver the papers. And Forrest told the auto driver, he said, let the bike boys ride on ride boards to deliver. And apparently it wasn't cold enough to keep them from driving the car out on the frozen ice, slamming on the brakes and spinning around. Mr. Herm said that was some of that. We were the happiest 12-year-olds. One tale told about Forrest Snyder says that one evening he lay down on the floor of his living room, fell asleep. When he woke up, he had trouble using his arms. He had to pull himself over to the door. It turned out that the flames went out on his the gas plates, and he was skipping. And he said a lot of folks converted to electricity. Kids could buy candy at Snyders to take to the movies.
Way down.
No, go back. Go back.
Candy, that's way down there.
Okay, one more.
I'm back.
Huh? Okay. No, one more.
For down.
Huh?
Back or forward?
Down.
Down. Okay.
Okay. This is about 1928 when they
38, you've got down.
1938. I'm sorry, I didn't mean 28, 38. But you can see Snyders right up there. Yeah, right there. There's Snyders. And the building next to it, that was the merry-go-round. That was J.T. Maston's. That was he had in 1928 he had moved from being right next door to the Blue Hen Theater. He had moved across the street next to Snyders. Now this is one of the first up close pictures of Snyders that I have ever seen. And my friend Corey Garrett Rose kindly let me put this in here. And this is 1943. And this was like a year before it was sold again. Can you point to the round building that
Right here?
That's right there.
Yeah.
There's the merry-go-round. That's J.T. Maston's merry-go-round. But it was gone by the early 40s. And I wanted to show where the railroad track, the spur came off the side. That's about where the big Snyders building would be put later on. Several lots west of 22 Rehoboth Avenue was an empty lot that had been vacated by James T. Maston's merry-go-rounds, popcorn, soda, and taffy store. It was occasionally used by Herb Dixon and his French fry cart. Herb swore that he had the only French fries in town. Whereas the lot was owned by the city. And the railroad spur had recently been removed in 28. Mr. Snyder, proceeded to, lease the lot from the city. He bought a two-story general store in Ocean View from Charles James. The block foundation was put in 2 months later. Put in, and 2 months later, the building was brought to Rehoboth in 2 halves. It took 12 hours to move and 5 hours to set up. And Forrest and Jenny moved into the upstairs apartment to live there. Okay. Okay. In 1945, Forrest sold that building at number 18 to Charles D. Royce, who put a full restaurant in there.
Next one.
Yeah, it was Royce's restaurant. It was there for quite a while. It was there until it was taken over by Bronstein's. Okay, this was the inside of it. No, not even, this was courtesy of Charlie Royce's daughter Joy. But I don't know if she seems to think that that's the original soda fountain, the counters with the stools. And she thinks her father might have put in the booth because everything I've read about it said that they had tables and chairs. The new Snyders was comfortably large with a long soda fountain on the left, round tables and chairs, a jukebox in the back, and phone booths. Now, when the time came around to change the records on the jukebox, all the teams would get there as soon as they possibly could because they gave the old records away free. And the phone booths were used to calling your friends. You put your dime in or whatever it cost back then, and call your friend, let it ring once and hang up. And they knew that if it rang once, it's time they'd call you back, and then you'd talk for free. The kids were notorious for carving their initials in the tables and reading the comics for free. There was a place in the back where you could. I think this is Corey. Is that the 50s? The 50s, early 50s. Yeah, this is early 50s, and Corey's grandmother is right there by the jukebox. Yep, Gail. At that time, she was Gail. There was a place in the back where you could get Breyers ice cream hand packed. Yes, they still sold Breyers. Take it home, put it in your freezer. They sold newspapers, magazines, postcards, film, candy, tobacco products. Yeah.
You want to be this one?
This is some other old.
Yeah, there's more. There's back here. You've got these.
This is a bus station on the side. The bus would come in around the old train station was moved over to the side there, and it was a horseshoe in the back. And the bus would pull it around and then pull beside Snyders.
This is the one that with Royce, and then this. That's about it. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Now, something has to be said about Coca-Cola, because Cokes were very popular. Boys, when it was boys, they had an ice saver and served very large Cokes. Garth had flavored Cokes of many flavors, including ammonia. Now, it's not the cleanup that would have been disastrous. Spirits of ammonia, which were originally an acid. It was ammonium hydroxide, water, alcohol, oils of lemon, nutmeg, and lavender. And you put just a very little drop or two into the Coke. The bus station on the side had two sets of bathrooms. One set inside. One set had entrances from the outside and had a sign that was over it that said colors only. And my father-in-law didn't like that. Okay. In 1942, during World War II, a young man from Clifton, New Jersey, named William England Snyder, was stationed at Fort Miles and Lewis to patrol the beaches in Lewis and Rehoboth. He met a local girl, Lois Noble Simpler. Is the marriage bands in there?
Goes down and raise. There it is.
Okay. He courted and married her and started a family. After the war, he took a job as a butcher at the A&P across from Snyders.
There it is. Okay.
There's the A&P with the American store. The American store and the A&P were right next to each other. And, he later delivered papers for Snyder and helped in the store. Lois had three children: Lois Ann, who was sitting in the front row; David, who was my husband for 22 years, who passed away in 91. And Chuck Snyder, which a lot of you people know, for taking all the pictures that end up in the newspapers. And he also runs the city. Fire chief. And always the fire. It's the fire chief.
Yeah.
More than once. They actually lived next to the post office in the early times. Now, on July 20th, 1953, Forrest Snyder died in his apartment over the Snyder store of a heart attack. He was director of the Rehoboth Trust Company, a sportsman, stockholder, and supporter of the Rehoboth Pirates baseball team and ballpark. He was buried in Epworth Cemetery in Rehoboth. Bill Snyder took over managing the store for Jerry Ross. He sorted out his estate. She sold the building and business to Bill, and the papers were passed in 1954 in the spring. Bill and Lois and the three children probably moved into the upstairs apartment. William England Snyder was his full name. He was now the proud owner of Snyder's Ice Cream, Candy, Soda Fountain, and newspapers. You could buy out-of-state newspapers as well as in-state, like the New York Times, Washington Post, Baltimore Sun. The back wall was filled with comics galore. As kids, we'd love to go in and grab comics and sit and read for free. And Bill would come over once in a while and he'd say, "You gonna buy that?" Eventually, all three of Bill and Lois's kids worked in the store. Chuck Snyder recalls riding his bike up to the post office to pick up newspapers. Things stayed mostly the same as they did with Forrest. You could get everyone's favorite, the bonbon at the fountain. It consisted of a big paper cup with vanilla ice cream in the bottom, shaved ice on the top of that, and topped off with chocolate syrup and a long spoon. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, good. I'll tell you about that one. Okay.
I think he's eating one.
That's Bill in the back with is that David? Yeah, that's my husband when he was little. That's Lois behind the soda fountain. One of the loveliest women I ever knew. Sweet as she could be.
Next one.
I'm not sure who that is.
Don Monaco.
That's what?
Don Monaco.
Don Monaco. Okay. This was these guys were called themselves the Three Coins Club.
They liked to meet at Snyders for coffee in the mornings. They were local businessmen that met to chew the fat and shoot the bull. I think we could Dick Hackett there. And there were other ones, the Palmer brothers, or cousins, I should say. Senator Williams came once in a while, Harry Rapkin,
Bill Joseph, Reverend Dean joined them later on.
Norman Calhoun.
Many more. Anyway, they were, they never failed. There never failed to be 2 or 3 tables of them. I'm not sure what they did with the 3 coins. My sister-in-law tried to explain to me, but I didn't get it. Yeah. Anyway, whoever won or whoever lost, I should say, had to pay for all the coffee. So it's folks who like to imbibe in the
Evening would come in the morning with a hangover, could get a much needed bromo seltzer at the soda fountain. Chuck said they were open every day, including Christmas and New Year's.
I know for a fact
That they had frosty root beer served in big, heavy, chilled glass mugs because Rehoboth policeman Ike West would buy me one whenever he saw me. On weekends, they might stay open as late as 1 o'clock in the morning
to catch people from the late movies.
Cigarettes were 35 cents a pack, and Coke were 16 cents.
18.
Cheaper than that at that time.
It was it.
It was such a wonderful small town at night, a small town atmosphere. Folks were able to lock their doors at night. Kids roamed the boardwalk and streets at night and quite frequently met at Snyders. Bought penny candy to take to the movies, to the beach. And I personally bought my first wax flakes in Mary Jane's. It's the next one.
It's the Nixon one.
1960.
It's in the background. I think all these people are deceased, to tell you the truth. Well, you can see Royce's sort of right up there.
Over here.
Later, around 45, the Robert Lee was built next door. And everybody likes to call the Robert Lee, but it had nothing to do with Robert Lee. It was named after Robert and Lee Graham.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Let me go ahead. The next one's the Snyders.
yeah. And when did you say this was? The 50s or the 60s? This was supposed to be. Snyders and Rogers was probably the late 50s or late 50s, early 60s. Rogers and Bill Snyder. Ran a little store on the boardwalk, somewhere in between Playland and right about there, probably next to near Franklin's.
And they published postcards just that 1 year. There's just postcards that say Snyder and Rogers. And this is one of the postcards.
It was just Rogers.
Hmm?
And then it became just Rogers.
Then it became just Rogers after that.
And then Kevin Moore.
Okay.
There we go. There we are.
This picture is why I ended up marrying my favorite Snyders. In 1966, I found myself without a prom date. Davis lived in this house at my lunch table, and they asked me if I had a date. And I said, no, I just broke up with my boyfriend. And they nudged, Buck Erickson nudged David and said, Snyder will go to the prom with you. He could just did the headlights look. I went, oh, the poor guy. I said, I looked at him and said, it's okay with me, it's okay with you. And he goes, really? I said, yeah. He goes, okay. And then he turns to me and he goes, you want to go to the basketball game on Friday? I said, yeah. I know each other before we go to the prom.
Which was
Left.
Yeah, oh yes, that's Chuck and that's David. I'm sorry. So that's it was December 1966. I went to Europe with my grandmother. And a couple of nice looking guys over there, and I thought, so I'm gonna date him when I get back, you know. He sends me this picture. He had a flat top. And he looked really happy, and I thought, man, he looks cute. Gave it all a chance, and ended up married, and was very good.
For 22 years, had 2 kids.
There you go.
I don't know what the Snyder plan
Well, there you go. You got,
He was listening. I don't know if he's like us.
Donna,
Um,
here's Bill.
1969,
Donna,
Oh,
I just went to the next one.
Yeah, that's fine, just stay right there. In 1969, Bill sold the building to J. Paul Rogers, and Snyders vacated the big store. They moved next door
to what was the old bus station, and that's where this picture is taken.
That's Bill. He always had a cigar in his mouth, and most of the time it wasn't even lit. Bill also moved out of the apartment upstairs
And moved to Laurel Street. Bill had become the city alderman for the, it was the first city alderman actually, because the job had been,
the mayor's job before that. He was the first city alderman, the year before that. The new Snyders was much tinier. They still sold and delivered newspapers, film developing, sunglasses, suntan lotion, paperback books, petty candy, sundries.
began his photography business in there in the back. Meanwhile, Rogers leased the store to Hertrick's.
That's David working in the little store.
And this is
that no? That's before they moved.
keep going.
There we go. You see Peterson's candy. That's this.
Hertrick's,
He put Peterson's House of Fudge in his place. I guess it was just called Peterson's
Candy there. It was there for 3 years. That was the Miss Delaware pageant parade. Oh, weird, they're going down the wrong side of the road. I just noticed that. In 1973, Lois passed away after a brave battle with lung cancer. She was one of the dearest women I ever knew. In 1970, she brought new changes as well as grief. Peterson's left, and Bill and David re-rented the old store. Snyder Soda Fountain Newsstand was back. Not quite
like it was, but still lots of family
working there before.
And there you see it. And a lot of since I was married to him at that time, I also worked there a little bit. I did not like dipping ice cream. There was a narrow kitchen in the back, and on busy days, Bill would cook dinner, and boy, he was a good cook for all the family that was working there. The last Brothers ice cream was no longer there. They sold Louis Sherry and then later Hostess. The Snyders had a great sense of humor, and there was always lots of joking and laughter. They were not above playing jokes on the new employees. And poor high school girl got it good. They set her up. The guy comes in. It's the first time
They had showed her how to dip
the ice cream, how to make all the sundaes and everything. And the guy comes in, who was a regular. And she says, "Can I help you?" And how can I help you? He goes,
Oh my.
Excuse me? With nuts, no cream, oh, you want a sundae?
Yeah, well, Sunday, a hot fudge.
A
Sunday with, a Sunday with hot fudge. That's right. Yeah, Sunday with hot fudge. And
with nuts, and cherry on top. A hot fudge sundae with, wet nuts. Butter sundae with wet nuts. We'll put a cherry on top. Whipped cream and a cherry on top. Yes, no, she goes, coming right up. She gives him the thing, he goes, well, that was good, thank you very much. So my father-in-law was standing there by the door laughing his butt off. In 1976,
He resigned as his job as alderman. A year later, his daughter Lois and her husband Kurt Rayner took over.
the store, and ran it much the same. He came in a few evenings a week to help out with newspaper magazine returns. Occasionally, he'd help dip ice creams on busy nights. Well, one night, a bunch of people came in, and they all wanted double dip cokes. And let me get this right. My brother-in-law told me this story on the phone. He said they all wanted the same flavor, but the big containers, it was almost empty. So he said, you know, open another big one, but you get the stuff out of the old one first. And he did this, the man who was the head of this group, I guess, was sitting there watching him concerned, and he had his cigar in his mouth. And he dips the first double dip cone, and he hands it to the man, and he goes, I'm not eating that. And he goes, what's wrong with it? He says, you've had your dirty knuckles in there in that thing. I said, I'm not eating your dirty knuckles ice cream cone. He says, I want to dip down to that new one. And he goes, fine. So he dips in one dip, 2 dips, 3 dips out of the new one. And he goes, here you go. And the guy goes to grab it. He goes, now put your money on the counter. So he puts his money on the counter and he goes, here you go. And the guy went to grab it and he drops the
Cone down, and the guy grabbed the ice cream and goes, there's your dirty knuckle ice cream. He had his limits. All righty, let's see.
Now, Kurt Rayner told a story about the man that came in one day with the Washington Post. She said he had a Italian accent. And he said he came in and he bought the Washington Post was 15 cents at that time. But in Delaware, it was 20 cents because of the delivery. The sign on the window of the store that said Washington Post 20 cents. The man pays his thing and he goes out and he looks at the paper and he sees 50 cents in the corner and he goes, I was cheated. I was robbed. And then he
goes to look for the sports section, and he goes, there's no sports section, but the wife had taken out a section before. He goes in, he takes what he has, he rolls up the paper, he walks in, and Kurt Rayner is sitting behind the counter.
And he comes in raging, and Kurt goes, what's the problem? He said, he reached across the counter and
slapped him across the face with the newspaper. Kurt said he came out from behind the counter and grabbed the guy and threw him out of the store. He says, then he watched. He says, and the wife is out there going
like this. And the guy comes back in meekly and says, wife says, I owe you an apology. And he goes, yeah. He says, she had the sports section. And she showed me the sign on the door that says 20 cents. And she says, to apologize, I have to spend money. He walked over to the section with the buckets and shovels and the beach toys were. Came back with all kinds of stuff and spent $21.
That's a much different.
Where do we go next?
here.
Yeah, okay.
It's to the end.
The kids, by this time, the kids are starting to get involved because the grandchildren are old enough to. If you were 12, you could work for family, and both my daughter and my niece both worked in there. You could just leave it there.
My son Matthew, when he was about 6 years old,
He loved to pull the soda tap, but he couldn't see inside the cup to see if it was full. But he figured if he could get the light behind it, he could see where the liquid ended. But he was determined.
one year,
Put the girls on.
now these are Bill Snyder's two granddaughters,
That's my daughter Suzanne.
and Lois Ann's daughter, Jennifer. And those two are like, going to the. And this is. Yeah, so in 1982, two relatives who were still living in the building divided the big Snyder store in half. The Raiders condensed the store down to a candy and soda shop on that side of there. And they sold fine chocolates, penny candy, saltwater taffy, and 19 cent cakes. And 19 cent, 18 cents. We're looking for 19 cents. They had multiple flavors, but no more. Now, my son, you worked in there? Yeah, when my son was, he was first, my son Matthew, when he was first working in there, it's like, they had to vet him a little better.
What happened?
Wanted a soda, and he was like,
I'll do it. I'll do it.
he takes the soda, he fills it up, puts the lid on it, takes the straw that's in a wrapper, bites off the top, shoves it down, grabs the straw in his teeth, pulls it out, and puts it in the thing. And let me like, no. Okay, in 1991, Bill's son David, my husband, died, ending the long Snyder run of them delivering the news journal. In 1995, January 20th, William England Snyder died of heart problems at Peninsula Regional Medical Center, Southbury, Maryland. He was Rehoboth's first full-time magistrate and longtime proprietor of Snyders Ice Cream Candy newspapers. He was called Mr. News Journal of Rehoboth by Bob Holloway, who was the Coastal Sussex sales manager. He knew everyone in Rehoboth, and boy did he. Single copy sales manager said he was one of our finest wholesalers. They had a huge one. He built a route to include 1,200 homes with the aid of his two sons. Service was at Westminster Presbyterian Church, where Reverend Dean, who was a close friend of the family, gave the eulogy. He'd been a member of the Masonic Lodge in Lewis. At the time of his death, he had 6 grandchildren and one great-granddaughter. 2001, the Raiders sold Snyders and ended the dynasty. Snyders has had several owners since, but it has kept the Snyder name. It was Snyders from 1936 until today.
Greg Kalinsky, who owns the store now, just
Who
bought
what?
the store. Greg Kalinsky is in the back. He just bought the store. He came tonight.
Oh, the man
Greg?
who just bought the store?
Yeah.
And now we have, if anybody has any questions, my husband Jack's gonna walk around with a library.
They go off again? There's a lady right up here. Jack, right over here.
I want to know more about the bonbons.
More about that. We would have to say that
Were they just for Snyders? I never told them they were invented there.
but I think they were. As far as we know, they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Francis says.
I just got to ask the ninth grade. Lived in Rehoboth all my life. We were living on Wellington Avenue, and I told my mom when I get a job, she where did I go? I said, "Well, I'll try Snyders." But Mr. Snyders scared me to death. So here I walk in there, like, like I have a job, and all that. And I did get a job. I went in, and my mom said, "Well, what did you say to him?" I said, "No idea." But the bonbon was, and it went in the medium coat. It was 3 scoops of vanilla ice cream, shaved ice, and then chocolate syrup on top. And it sold for 15 cents.
Wow.
$15. $60.15.
Yeah.
No. That's it. No, that was it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Anybody else have questions? Don's got lots of answers, so ask the question.
Okay.
I'm a fourth generation Rehoboth.
First,
My great grandparents bought the house in 1925.
no,
My
my,
grandparents bought a house in 1923, and my great grandparents bought a house in 1920. My great grandmother was a real estate agent in Rehoboth, in the summer.
Okay, we got 2 now.
There are just two more.
Yeah.
I think you failed to mention how they sold the little customer bottle kits and
Oh, yes, they did, yes, they
all
sold
that
them
stuff on
models.
that side.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, one year I bought, they had models, they had Dracula, Frankenstein,
and a working guillotine.
that's what they take you, because you told it.
Stop and let it go. You go,
Oh. When did they stop having the soda fountain?
When did they have what?
Stop having the soda fountain.
When did they stop having the soda fountain?
They teach me a small story. It was a treasure out. Whatever you sold out.
I apologize, I was hearing aids, I'm not hearing well.
When did you stop having the soda fountain?
Do you remember what year the soda fountain was taken out?
Oh, 82.
82? Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Donna, thank you so much.